Hello and welcome, my friends. Glad you could join me. So this has been an extremely wet winter in my area, pretty much record-breaking, but my daffodils still came shining through. They are beautiful, fragrant mainstays to most spring gardens, and they're fairly low maintenance. You may have planted them in flower beds or in pots, depending on how much space you have to work with where you live. There are a few things that we need to do, though, to ensure that they have rich, big, fluffy blooms each year. And if you do like flowers as much as I do, remember to like, share, and subscribe. So we're going to go through the steps from planting them through to after they have bloomed, just some tips that might help you to have success in your garden with them. So when you're planting them, what you want to do is to make sure that you put it in a sunny area, because they do like a lot of sunshine. The soil needs to be soil that is well drained. Also, you'll want to make sure that if it's not rich, that you add either compost, or you can even add bone meal that you can purchase at your local garden center. And what you'll do is you'll work that into the soil before you actually plant the bulbs. And I did a previous video that you can watch, and I'll put it at the end so you can see step by step on how to plant them, putting them in the right direction, right depth, and so on. Once they start coming up in the winter, what you'll want to do is to make sure that you're watering them sufficiently. Some winters can be very wet, so you actually don't even need to water them at all. But if you're not getting any rain, then you'll want to water them usually 1 to 2 times per week. And a good way to check is just to reach in under the mulch, which you typically would have spread on top after you planted your bulbs, and just check to see whether or not the soil is completely dried out. If it is, then you'll want to water them and make sure that the water is going all the way through. And when you see water coming from the bottom of the container, if they're in pots, then you'll know that they have had a good soaking. Once they have started coming up, the same rule pretty much applies. You want to make sure that they are wet, not soaked, just sufficient. And if it's raining in your area, then that typically takes care of all of that. Once your blooms are spent, then what you'll want to do is to go in and get your sharp pair of pruners. Be careful with those. They need to be clean. And you just go in and you cut off those spent blooms. And what that does is that it actually allows the plant to use its energy to produce food, which gets stored in the bulbs for the following year. And it doesn't spend that energy trying to produce seeds in those little tops that you see there. The temptation usually is to go in and trim off the leaves once the flowers have faded and the tips start to get yellow. But you really actually have to allow them to get yellow all the way through. And once that has happened, then you can trim the leaves back. If you don't like the way the leaves look, then you can always plant in other cool weather flowers, such as pansies, dianthus, hellebores, or different types of flowers that you can get from your local garden center to give you some color while you're waiting for that process to end. And of course, they're just such a great statement for springtime. And speaking of springtime, here are 2 of my little visitors. I just love when they come by. And if you do get them, or you want to encourage them in your area, it's always good to get feeders and put them out. The ones that fall to the ground, the little grains and so on, they typically go in for those. And once they feel comfortable in your area, then they'll keep coming back. They make beautiful sounds. They're just very relaxing to watch. So I hope that this information helped you with your daffodils. I hope you'll have a wonderful spring when it gets here, depending on when you're watching this video. And I do thank you so much for watching.